That's a veteran player that's been very productive in this league, and are in conjunction with the scouting department. Our Chris and myself and the rest of the scouting department and the coaching staff felt very excited to have the opportunity to add him to the team. He's a veteran presence, a guy that's been in big games, a guy that for a young team can be very impressionable, and a playmaker to boot.
Like, when does that stuff show up? Does it show up early, or does it show up in those moments, or is it always there? You know what I mean? When is it most important?
I think that shows up. One of the great things about football is that nothing you see on Sundays just comes out of nowhere. This is a very practiced and well orchestrated game that you don't just all of a sudden have production out of nowhere. It's how you carry yourself on a day-to-day basis, especially people that are able to be productive for several years of time. That is a day in, day out process that we have coaches and players that have been on teams with him that were able to kind of give us a glimpse of what we'd be getting, and that type of person first is the reason why the player exists.
Orange jersey and practice player of the day, was it your idea? Tell us how you came up with it, and just what's your process for selecting who earns that practice player of the day?
There was it actually this off season we're spitballing various things. Coach John Embry brought up the idea of there was a lot of talk about my DJ skills pre-team meetings, so to kind of put that to bed and say, hey, if you're so great, why don't you show yourself? He floated the idea of having a practice player organically as a staff. We kind of came up with selecting a particular person that would not only be represented as the best player on the field from the practice before, but also take all accountability for DJ selections from the head coach and make sure everyone knows that it's the person with the orange jersey that's making those calls.
Had a negative reaction to the way the playlist? Did anybody have a playlist that was not well received?
That was another learning opportunity for the team, because I think the first day Jalen Phillips received some flack, and then just for some particular selections, everyone has an opinion, especially when it comes to things like that. But we talked about it as a team, and since then there's been no grumblings, because the whole point is if you have any comments or critiques over the DJ list, become the DJ.
So it's basically just to take the heat off yourself.
Unintended consequence. But I think there's multiple winners in the whole process. But I think the guys, they definitely respect the players that have been given it, and it's something you can tell this team's full of competitors, because they even within one's position group, the second one guy receives it, it seems to lift up the rest of level of play from that group.
Tua won it one of the days.
He did.
Showed up on video. What have you seen from him, and what do you want to see out of Tua?
I knew I saw somebody on the construction area of the Baptist Hospital. Were you looking over the fence? No, he earned it. I think his teammates acknowledge that. What have I seen from him? I'm sorry, I was distracted with the picture of you hovering over the fence. I've seen a guy that's attacking the moment, a guy that really likes to play football. They're in the process of college evaluations, and you're in the National Football League in a different conference. You hear people describe a quarterback's instinctiveness, and that you don't. It's kind of probably how it hits your ear, hit mine, where that's intriguing, but I didn't quite know what that meant. And and now I have a better idea of what that meant. I still don't have a better way to describe it besides instinctiveness, but there's a you can tell the players played the position for a long time, and that he thinks about the game of football through the lens of the quarterback position, and so been very excited about his development in terms of the offense and playing and being the starting quarterback for the Miami Dolphins.
Mike, what specifically in OTAs are the 2 or 3 things you really want to achieve?
Well, I'm glad you asked. You're first trying to identify a standard with which you play and a standard with which you practice, and then within that's where your camaraderie and that's where your relationships are built. You don't they're blood, sweat, and tears that are earned over hard work, and you're trying to get a team to decide what their standard of play is going to be, and then you want to uphold that standard because it's the way that you just operate and function as a football team. So that identity, it's a tackle sport, but you can, the way we look at it is you can start that identity by the way you practice without tackling.
If you'd indulge me, I have a couple of trend questions, national questions. I want to ask you first about the fullback position. When you worked with Kyle and obviously his dad, what was the significance of the fullback to that offense, and what impact has that had on your coaching philosophy?
It's been extremely impactful. I've been fortunate enough since the year 2005 to be in the same structure offense, and this would be my 7th team. And from the starting point, day one installation had a fullback involved, and one of the advantages of a fullback is that you have a backfield player that can give you different numbers on each side of the center depending on the direction he goes. So if you're in just a normal dot formation, you have 2 eligibles on each side, and then the halfback at home. Well, when you're in the I formation, is it 3-by-1 or is it 2-by-2? That's from a starting point, and it doesn't hurt that a lot of offenses have gone away from that, only because with the historical experience that our staff has had, and myself included, defenses aren't as adept at fitting those types of plays, whether it's runs or passes, and defending against it, which is a competitive advantage when you're able to find a fullback that's, it's just not any ordinary human being, or you must play with a fullback. You have to have an athletic player that is smart and can understand a lot of schemes and can read on the fly. But when that position player plays fast, it can be pretty disruptive to teams that aren't used to going against it.
I appreciate that answer. And one unrelated question. I've got quarterbacks. You all drafted one this year. Every team has a different evaluation for collegiate quarterbacks when they're going through the process. What are the kind of the pitfalls teams need to avoid with the evaluation process? Because we have all this information, more information than ever on these college kids, but teams still make mistakes. So what are the biggest challenges, I guess, evaluating?
I think it's paramount that you just get good quarterbacks and avoid the bad ones. No, it's like any other position. That's the hardest part of football. When you're selecting players to play in a game that's slightly different. There's compounding variables for success. So does your quarterback benefit from having a fast-paced, very fast, highly skilled group of eligibles? What kind of situations is the existing coaching staff that he's playing within? What is the scheme like? What is he being coached? There's so many layers, which makes this game beautiful, which makes scouting departments extremely relevant and makes it very tough. And that's why you're not 100% on any position ever, because it's an inexact science, because you're dealing with human beings that are a product of their environment, and you're forecasting what they're going to be in a completely different environment. Those are there's like a laundry list of different things that can create success or failure in the NFL game. So you just try to project what are the things that that NFL quarterback is going to be asked to do. Namely, he's going to have to. I'm not sure when you guys watch NFL games, but the pockets aren't huge. There's a lot of congestion. There's a lot of traffic going in and around quarterbacks. Can they play the position in high duress? Are they tough? Can they anticipate those types of things? You're looking at the college game that they're playing and trying to extrapolate to an unforeseen future, really.
You have a follow-up?
Oh, go ahead, next.
Okay. Wanted to ask you about Connor Williams. I don't know. We saw him working inside.
Did you?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And is that more of everybody cross-training, or is that a realistic option for him? And how much of that experience was part of the reason why you guys explored signing him?
You know, when you're training a player, specifically one that has had inside flexibility, he's played center in preseason games, and you're trying to train, and you have a multitude of linemen that have position versatility. There's not a greater way to learn the intricacies of the offense than by starting with different alignments and assignments. Namely, the center position, you have to make a bunch of calls, and so you have to really know what everyone's doing. So it doesn't hurt you don't want to ever put a ceiling on and decide before you see them play within your system exactly where you want players to kind of decide that for you, and it's something that an offensive line. You guys have been around the NFL game long enough. There's so many things that can happen, and you're only as good as your versatility within the NFL framework of a season. So if you it only benefits the Miami Dolphins if you're able to play a multitude of positions, and we felt one of those positions for Connor would be center.
You guys brought in a handful of receivers this offseason in kind of the same vein as guys that can play multiple positions, the X, the Z, the slot. Is that kind of the same idea at the receiver position, how they see the game from different spots and their flexibility at those positions?
Yeah, we're primarily, first and foremost, we're looking for good football players. And what we've, I know our coaching staff has learned over the course of their careers. I have extensive experience in the fact that the more you know, the more versatility you have, the more that you can isolate and take advantage of matchups in a given week. So I think Chris shares the same view as I have, where there's a degree of allure or attractiveness to football players that can do a multitude of things. That makes them remember, they're a cog in a wheel of efficiency is what you're trying to create on both sides of the ball, because it is the ultimate team sport in that you have the most players working in unison at the same time, as well as it's a game of inches, as we know, where the most minute shortcoming of technique or the best execution of technique can be the
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.